Yes, the CBN is planning to ban importation of wheat, but what is the current demand and supply chain of the produce like?
Okay, Wheat Farmers Association is the largest producer of wheat in Nigeria, operating in 16 states with a minimum of 1 million farmers registered. So you see from this direction that we have a large number of farmers that can participate into wheat production. Having heard that CBN is going to restrict forex exchange, is a very good news to us, but we have to tighten our belts, put the matter on a drawing table, see how we can meet the demand gap.
Okay, now in meeting this demand gap, what are the plans you have? Because already bread in Abuja, for instance, in fact, it's very scarce on the shelves of most stores.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
Great.
It has to be very scarce, it has to be very short, because for the last 2 years, the association does not produce enough wheat, because of we do not receive any funding from CBN upon all the efforts we make. And this brought about low quantity available in the market of locally produced wheat. This also attributed to the high purchase cost from 18,000, that is 180,000 per metric ton of wheat grain, to 350,000 naira per metric ton currently now. So, and however, the foreign wheat domination by the Flour Millers Association is not available as demanded due to COVID-19 pandemic. So you see, this has greatly affected the wheat supply chain in the country, and because of that scarcity of the wheat produce, definitely there should be a higher cost of purchase, and at the end of the time, the output cost. That's why the bread price must increase. So we at the association level, having had this situation, are planning now to engage 1,200,000 farmers into production this season. That is our plan.
The rains have started. How will this your plan work?
No. Wheat is not a wet season.
Yes.
It is dry season activity. We still have time.
Okay.
We have produced all our calendars to go into the farming activity.
So in how many years do you think Nigeria can be self-sufficient?
If the CBN will rightly fund the association with 1,200,000 farmers at expected average production yield of 3 tons per ton, you are about 1,600,000 metric tons, which is almost half the demand chain by the mills in the country. So in the next 2 seasons, that is 2 years, definitely if we do not meet up the whole total demand of importation in the country, we will reach not more than 80-90% of supply.
Okay, now Nigerians and master bakers are complaining about scarcity and high cost of flour. Are millers ready to work with you people to produce and, of course, take what you are producing?
Yes, we have already signed an MOU between us and the flour millers.
Fantastic.
Public of our locally produced wheat. The only area where we are having a problem is the setting up of the price. That's why in this vein, in our plan this season, we will emphasize an advocacy that the government should give a subsidy at the harvest period, not before the harvest period, at the harvest period, so that if we have a guaranteed minimum price, it will stabilize the offtake price and the market prevailing price.
Okay, now before I let you go, there is this fear of sabotage from within and outside the country. How prepared is Nigeria to address this?
Well, this depends on the policy that the government has set up. If the government is consistent on the policy of banning the import of the material, 2, supporting the association with very good funding at a good time, 3, making sure that there is a guaranteed minimum price or subsidy at the harvest period, definitely that politics will be out of the system.
Okay, I must sincerely thank you, Mr. Salim Mohammed, for joining us this morning. He is a national president with Farmers Association of Nigeria. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do have a nice one. Next in our Surviving COVID-19 series is a young entrepreneur who COVID-19 pandemic has further made to renew his determination to succeed in his point-of-sale business, as well as explore options including federal government interventions for small and medium enterprises.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
I'm a POS personnel. I do provide POS service, withdrawal and deposit to my customers. COVID-19 affected my business in the sense that the patronage dropped for up to 50% because people complained that they have no money in their accounts, deposits were reduced drastically. And it affected us because we cannot pay our employees, but sometimes we find it difficult to pay them salary. It's picking up gradually because you see there's a lot of free movement now. People go their way, people do their businesses. Some people earn daily salaries, and most of this money are paid into their account. Most of them come to us with POS withdrawal. So our sales is picking up again. But any other financial assistance to go along with, just like we are talking about COVID-19, no business coming in, so therefore the rate of withdrawal and rate of deposit was reduced. So this money will help us, it will help me go a long way. Nothing in life is static. You understand? Nothing is stable. You know, this COVID has taught us to adjust to life. It has taught us a lesson that nothing is stable in life. You know, as things come, you find a way to.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
The Office of the Auditor General for the Federation has opened a forensic laboratory and successfully trained the first batch of forensic auditors and examiners for data management for proper accountability. It also gives real-time access to files across NTAs for the purpose of audit, with 21 forensic auditors already trained. Auditor General for the Federation, Agugu Adolphus Hormela, says the auditors would resume in ministries, departments and agencies next week.
You want to get an answer with evidence, you look in the direction of forensic auditing. It is not only just audit evidence for the National Assembly, it is equally evidence that could be gathered and tabled for prosecution of culprits.
Project has so far gulped 74 million naira since it began in 2017, and the Auditor General is optimistic it will transform the nation's audit system in line with global best practices and the changing times. The US dollar was subdued on Tuesday as investors looked to US inflation data due later in the week after softer than expected jobs data quelled expectations of an early tapering in the Federal Reserve stimulus. Let's now see how much the naira is exchanging for the currencies. Of Africa's air transport industry performance for 2020, covering financial performance, passenger and cargo traffic evolution, airport ranking, intra-Africa connectivity and openness. The report said 2020 was an exceptionally difficult year in history, with the travel industry severely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The estimated passenger revenue loss for Africa Airlines last year is $10.21 billion. The number of scheduled passengers carried by African Airlines dropped from 95 million in 2019 to 34.7 million in 2020, representing a yearly decline of 63.7%. Now, stocks have been subdued in Nigeria, and away from home Asia-Pacific stocks have also been mixed. Japan's economy shrinks less than expected in the first quarter. Bosti Ibel is our guide.
stock market, investors around the world remain focused on the release of key U.S. inflation data on Thursday. Asia stocks reversed early gains on Tuesday. Hong Kong Hang Seng Index declined 0.33%. China's benchmark index dropped more than 0.69%, weighed down by liquor makers. And the Nikkei also dipped 0.19%. European stocks opened higher on Tuesday as investors look ahead to Eurozone growth and employment data for the first quarter. FTSE futures were down 0.12%, pointing to a subdued start for European markets. U.S. stock futures are little changed in early morning trading Tuesday after the Dow and S&P 500 both started the week lower. Futures on the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 25 points, while the S&P 500 futures and Nasdaq 100 futures both traded in mildly positive territory. Stocks on the African continent are yet to post numbers this morning, but are also expectant of the release of key U.S. inflation data. Bossede Able, Business Express.
And of course, this is where we end this edition of Business Express. The program returns tomorrow, Wednesday at 3 p.m. I am Leah Katun Babatunde saying do have a nice day ahead.
NTA, you can't beat the reach.
NTA Tuesday Live, analytical, in-depth, educative and interactive on national issues accommodating all sides of opinions.
We as a people have understood that we have to fight corruption before it fights us back.
Poverty has a financial index, so it should be fought also with a financial weapon. Give it to the social investments program. It has been a very courageous battle.
Tuesday Live, every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. Join us.
The Council of Our Fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together. Revision classes on television for students in secondary schools in English and mathematics will commence on the NTA. The revision classes will transmit Mondays to Fridays from 5 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. on the network service of the NTA. This is organized in preparation for the various national examinations and orders. This is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Education.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Health in Your Hands. I'm Dr. David Ajibade with the Brain and Body Foundation. I hope you're staying safe. If you've been vaccinated, good for you. Stay healthy. Don't drop your guard. Remember, this is a fight that everybody is involved in. So please continue to practice the safety principles that have been drummed into you by the NCDC. Now, we're going to be talking about a topic that, in my opinion, is crucial. And as a matter of fact, that's how we started and why we started this program in the first place. If you remember, about 2 years ago, I did an episode called Why Blacks Die First. And we're going to be talking about it a lot more when our guest comes on. But when you're thinking about sports, when you're thinking about the fastest man in the world, the names like Usain Bolt, Michael Johnson, and so on and so forth. But the picture that comes to you is that of a black man. The same thing with long distance running. You hear of the East Africans, those from Ethiopia, from Kenya, who continually smash the records. They dominate in these events. So to some degree, you associate the blackness with physical strength and health. So it's puzzling, in my opinion, when we started seeing, or I started noticing that, and of course, this is not new, everybody pretty much is aware of this, that Black people tend to have much higher rates of certain conditions, especially the chronic diseases, hypertension, diabetes, cancer, specific kinds of cancer like prostate cancer, breast cancer, lung cancer, colon cancer, even mental health conditions. We're seeing a preponderance of Black people having that problem. Why is that so? I think we need to shine the light on that and really interrogate it and understand it so that we, as healthcare professionals and as government workers and as decision makers, will be able to inform those, the man on the streets, but also more importantly, especially important, are those who don't have access to healthcare, those living in remote areas, the villages or towns where there's no access to a healthcare specialist like the one we're going to have, who's going to come on the show very soon. We need to be able to empower people to make the right decisions and understand their weaknesses, especially as Black people, and then make the necessary corrections, take the necessary precautions to ensure that they and their kids live a long, healthy life. I think we owe that to them, for Pete's sake. So without much further ado, I want to introduce Dr. Susan Edionwe. How are you, ma?
Hi, how are you doing? Thank you for having me. Glad to be back on the show.
Yes, and your last time we had you, there were lots and lots and lots of responses that people liked what you had to say. They liked the way you said it. And so, as you know, I've been, trying to get you back on and find yourself, and then we'll get into our
nose and throat physician, or a head and neck surgeon is, I guess, the other name for it, that is in the United States. I am based in Houston, Texas. I am heavily involved in a lot of organizations that deal with all things Nigerian health. So I'm currently the national membership chair of the Association of Nigerian Physicians in the Americas, as well as the chair-elect for the Nigerian Physician Advocacy Group. So Nigerians and their health is something that I care very much about. I'm also a lifestyle medicine physician. So that is a relatively new realm of medicine that is actually one that you can become board certified in, and recognized by the ABMS, which is sort of the body that recognizes our different specialties here in the US. So wellness and really looking at health from a holistic standpoint is something that is very near and dear to me. And one of the reasons why I like platforms like this, because I like to share the message of people and patients really taking their health in their own hands.
What is your opinion about all this? I know I've thrown out a few things, but I got to tell you, I mean, this, because having worked in the US and worked in Nigeria, these differences were more striking to me. But what's your observation from all this in your practice?
In terms of the sort of genetic predisposition for different kinds of diseases, it's what we know. It's definitely something that we, because medicine is a lot of medicine is about trying to create an explanation or understand the patterns that you see in front of you. When you see a demographic of people continually have the same problem, more so than another, natural inclination is that you try and say, well, what's going on here? For those who don't know, in 2003 was when the international effort to complete the human genome sequencing was done. And I actually was in one of the institutions that was a part of that, although my part was very, very small. But I was at the Baylor College of Medicine doing a rotation there and got to actually contribute a very small bit of research to sequencing the human genome. And what really drove that is this question of, well, why is it, how can we explain the differences in diseases based off of ethnicities and groups of people? And it really drove us to say, well, the answer must be in our genes. And from there, after 2003, you really saw this explosion of a lot of research going into, well, what sorts of genetic mutations and genetic inheritances make this person or these people express the diseases that they tend to have versus others. I mean, and it makes sense in this world of medicine where our job is to try and explain to you what's going on. So yeah, it's definitely something that we have and we continue as in medicine as a whole.
Absolutely, and that's what we're talking about. We're going to take a quick break here now, Doc, and we'll be right back. So folks, do not go away. All right, welcome back, folks. Just as a reminder, and I know sometimes we forget to remind people about this, to the Brain and Body Foundation, we host free clinics on Fridays. In other words, you can go and find out, you can contact us, come to our clinics, our staff, even though I'm in the US, our staff is on ground to take care of your kids, those with brain disorders and those with sickle cell disease, free of charge. Yep, I said so, free of charge. So just call in, and then they will give you the instructions. You have our information on the website, I guess it's going to be on your screen, www.brainandbodyfoundation.org. And if you need to speak to me, my staff will arrange that for you as well. So don't forget. All right. Why Blacks die first? One of the things that has stood out the most, in fact, I saw this report, 2015, for the first time ever, the top 5 causes of death. Among the top 5 were heart attacks and strokes. Never before. It was always about infection and diarrhea and all that for West Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. But now it's like it's creeping in. And growing up in medical school, we all thought, oh, this heart disease, stroke, that's a problem of the third world countries. That's a problem of the US and Canada and UK. They eat all the hamburgers and on and so on and so forth. But it's affecting Nigeria and the rest of West Africa much, much more now than we possibly ever imagined. It's worse between Blacks and whites. What is going on here?
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. The statistics definitely confirm what we're finding. In the United States, for example, statistics show that 48% of Black males, and 44% of Black females have some form of cardiovascular disease. And as you mentioned, the World Health Organization has put out statistics showing that in sub-Saharan Africa, the leading cause of death is cardiovascular related. So the numbers are definitely there. Again, there is both sides of that same coin. There definitely is a genetic predisposition. Whenever we talk about these things, I always like to preface it by telling people we're very early in our understanding of the genetics that goes on that contributes to the expression of heart disease more so in Black people than in non-Black people throughout the world. We do know that there are some genes so far that are contributors. One of the genes, something called apolipoprotein E, that is a gene for a protein called apolipoprotein that is responsible for fat metabolism and how our body gets rid of fat. As you know, fats, triglycerides, cholesterol, they all play a very, very major role in the development of all kinds of cardiovascular disease. So there is a thought, and this was a study that came out in 2013, that there is a genetic mutation in people of African ancestry for this particular kind of lipid protein. And that may lead to some of the disturbances that we see with Black people being able to metabolize fats appropriately. And that may be a genetic contributor to cardiovascular disease and subsequent death from cardiovascular disease.
Okay, all right. So there's a genetic aspect. I hear that. We can't do much about that. Is there a lifestyle factor involved too?
100%. There is definitely, again, other side of the coin. There's absolutely
specifically where Black people are concerned, because we've got to be able to explain why Black people. Yeah.
There's absolutely a environmental. That's the category, environmental aspect to all of this. And when really sort of thinking this through, this is actually, what I'm about to say actually is sort of the underlying issue, not just for heart disease, but for a lot of the comorbidities. A lot of these things are lifestyle diseases. And when you look at lifestyle issues, environmental issues that plague both Black people in America and Nigerians, we see some commonalities. One, sedentary lifestyles. Oftentimes we don't even really think of how our lack of activity plays into heart disease, things like heart disease, even things like sudden death. There's actually a link between sedentary lifestyles and your risk of sudden death. But when you look at heart disease specifically, this is a huge environmental factor. When you look at both demographics, whether it be Black Americans or Black Africans, the studies prove that we suffer both, regardless of what part of the world you're in, we both suffer from inactivity. In fact, there was a study that showed that a quarter of Nigerians die from diseases that are related to lack of physical activity. That's 25%. And in the US, the numbers are no better. The numbers are absolutely no better. With a lot of the different conveniences that we have in life, Americans as a whole suffer from sedentary lifestyles, particularly amongst African Americans.
So it seems to me like it's a cultural thing that has been almost programmed into our genes.
You know what? We are, when I have these conversations with people, the more and more we sort of delve into these things, I often find myself saying, we're more related than we think. We are more alike than we're different. Because especially for Black people, whether you are African or of African descent and African American, there's so much that seems to tie us together, including diet. So we talked about activity, but diet is also a part of it, both in the Western society, but also in Western Africa, Nigeria, we are seeing a westernization of our diets. We're seeing portions get bigger, and we're seeing diet habits get worse. And that trend, it's a global trend. So, you know, it's not just exclusive to Africa and the US. It's a global trend, but it's a trend that affects Africans as well as African Americans. And it's a huge contributor to heart disease and a lot of the other comorbidities that we talk about today.
You know, speaking about diet too, I've noticed that whites tend to have more prone to take, I mean, they have their own health challenges, obviously, and their dietary problems, but they tend to have a lot more of the raw veggies and fruits on their tables at dinner time and at lunchtime than Black people here. Black people tend to like the fried stuff, you know, the cooked stuff, sometimes the spiced stuff. But in terms of really focusing on getting those raw veggies, which, as you know, these raw veggies have the nutrients, the enzymes, the protective factors for the heart, that if they're not cooked, I mean, is when they are raw that they are most potent and most beneficial to the body. And I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't see veggies as big a factor in most African and Black neighborhoods as much as the whites.
I have a great anecdote for that. Recently in my city, there is a new African grocery store that has an eatery in it, and everything they're serving, all fried. Now, it's good stuff, right? Who doesn't like meat pie? Who doesn't like Nigerian egg roll? Who doesn't like puff puff? Exactly. You know, jollof rice with palm oil. Who doesn't like beef, right? it's all the stuff that, you know, we just want to eat that. But just going through and when, you know, standing there, you don't see a lot of fresh anything on people's plates. It's all the cooked stuff, the fried stuff, the stuff that tastes great. You know, something that my mom always says, my mom is a bit of a nutritionist in her own right. She has been talking about a lot of, and mind you, my father is actually a dietitian, but my mom was the original nutritionist in our family. But she says something to us, and she still says it to this day. And if you see my mom, she looks decades younger than she should look, and she's a very slender woman. But she says you have to eat to live versus living to eat. There are times when it's okay to indulge, right? You know, no one's saying to deny yourself, but you have to understand that eating is really a part of providing the nutrients to your body. So you have to understand how to eat appropriately to live well, rather than just living to eat anything that you want to eat. And that's something that, you know, it's a struggle that we see in African and African American communities. And we see it in other communities, but particularly in these communities, it's a struggle that is still a challenge.
And I think we tend to be more prone to this problem. We're running out of time, and we're going to take a quick break now, but we still need to just touch on some of the other things that we're now finding out. For instance, dental health and the connection between bad dental hygiene, oral hygiene, and cardiovascular disease. Another thing, we mentioned exercise. Another thing is nutrients like vitamin D, which we Blacks globally tend to be lacking in. And I'm always shouting about this. It has come to the front even more now with COVID-19. That was a big factor. A lot of research was being done with COVID-19 and vitamin D. Yes, the argument is that it's more of an association than a causative factor, but it cannot be ignored nevertheless. So these are a few of the other things that I think that should be part of the discussion as we go along. But we'll take a quick break here. Folks, do not go away. All right, welcome back. And I'm here with Dr. Susan Odionwe, who is an ENT surgeon and lifestyle medicine, talking about why Blacks die first with regards to cardiovascular disease. So, Doc, I know we don't have all that much time, but we can't leave this without talking about diabetes, because that's becoming an explosive factor, not just here, but around the world.
You're absolutely right. I mean, you can tell I'm somebody that likes to look at the numbers, but the numbers don't lie. 60% of African Americans, or 60, rather, diabetes is 60% more common in African Americans than in white Americans. And then in Nigeria, over 11.2 million people, which is 1 out of 17 adults, 1 every 17 adults suffer with diabetes. So diabetes is definitely something that is a problem for people of African descent, whether you are African or African American. And it's the same thing as what we talked about with the heart disease. There is a genetic predisposition. Now, it's still known as a lifestyle disease. I think we can safely say that even though there is some genetics that factor into this, this is a very lifestyle related disease. There is some evidence, and this is early studies sort of looking at, again, genetic sequencing. There are certain chromosomes where certain mutations have been shown to be more prevalent in people of African descent. But that notwithstanding, what we do know is, like I said, lifestyle, and lifestyle. And a lot of the things that we talked about before definitely play into it, particularly diet and activity. Those two things, if you make a change in those two things alone, those can be curative for your diabetes, as long as it's not too far gone. So that is something that, for those who are listening, especially if you're listening in Nigeria, that is something that you have the control to cure on your own. It leads me to, if I can, to take a minute to mention something that in the environment, so to speak, that plagues both Africans and African Americans. When we talk about, is it nature versus nurture, and what factors in the environment predispose us to these things, health literacy is a very big risk factor. And so what do I mean by that? This issue of not understanding what things cause the diseases that we have and what we can do about them, we find that health literacy, that's what we call that, is an issue both for African Americans, but also for Africans. And we see that health literacy is a little different in other communities where they're more proactive about learning about their health and taking their health into their own hands. So for those who are listening, when we talk about diabetes and other diseases, the most important thing you can do for yourself is be proactive and educate yourself on these things.
Absolutely. Well, very well said. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing these shows, and we're going into all this efforts to ensure that people get it, you know. And speaking about lifestyle and diet, that's a general term, Doc. And I know we don't have all that much time to really go into it, but there's some quick tips you can give us. Like, should we be eating pounded yam every day, every 3 times a day, for instance? I mean, what are the things that we're looking at here?
So in this lifestyle, this sort of curriculum of lifestyle medicine, there are certain things that lifestyle medicine looks at. And it really looks at, one, your diet, your exercise level, your sleeping, because people do not even recognize that your sleep or lack thereof can predispose you to certain diseases. It looks at your relationships, toxic relationships, and it's kind of, this alludes to something we talked about before. Stress isn't just feelings. Toxic relationships aren't just feelings. They actually have a physical component that can contribute to your health. And then it looks at your history of risky substance use. So are you a smoker? Are you a drinker? These vices aren't just innocent. There are physical issues that can come along with that. So in the world of lifestyle medicine, the kind of diet that we recommend is a whole food, plant-based diet. So what that really looks like is something we talked about earlier: more vegetables, more green leafy vegetables. Some people like to describe it as the rainbow diet. So you want to eat all the colorful things that you see in nature. Does it mean you can't eat meat? No, it doesn't mean that you can't, but you want to switch around the portions of what you're eating. You want your meat and fish and dairy, all of those things, to be less than 20 to 30% of your diet. And you want the larger bulk of your diet to be these uncooked, raw sorts of things that we find in nature. Genetically, what unites us, whether you are in Africa or in the US and you're Black, genetically, this unites us. And so particularly for vitamin D, that pigmentation, the gene for pigmentation, the melanin that we have, that is what can hinder our ability to synthesize vitamin D from sun exposure. I found a very interesting statistic that showed that half of African Americans are vitamin D deficient. And we have seen that low vitamin levels plays into certain diseases, such as uterine fibroids. So yes, I wanna stress what you've said. Vitamin D and supplements, do not overlook these things because we are at a disadvantage. Our skin is beautiful, but there are some things that come along with having such great skin.
Absolutely. Even though they say black don't crack, deep down under.
You know?
So, Doc, thank you so much. And of course, we're not going to let you go. You're going to come back next week, right? And we're going to complete this topic because we still have to talk about cancer, sickle cell disease, and the like. We have to educate our Black people about these conditions so that they're not careless. And we have a tendency to be careless anyway. So but as we give you more information, people will be more apt to make those right decisions and take the right actions. Very good. Folks, remember, we've already treated white Black stuff. So Susan Edionwe did before, which was fantastic. She did something on stress and heart disease and other conditions as well. So we have to go now. Remember to stay safe. And Dr. Susan Edionwe, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.
You bet. Bye, folks. Take care. Bye.
I never get this kind of thing, or I hear it.
This year has been quite awful, but due to the pandemic, which we all know about.
During the pandemic, from the month of March down to October, we weren't paying a dime in the school.
I got to know about Survivor Fund on social media. When I got to know about it, I related it with our director, which he affirmed that we should apply.
I didn't take interest in it at first. I thought government, all these forms that they are filling, no one is actually paying.
But once the money came in, I was so happy.
It was 30,000 for each teacher, and it went a long way for the teachers.
I want to thank the federal government for having us in mind concerning this Survivor Fund initiative.
From dusk to dawn, 24 hours a day, NTA International is with you. In your living room, office, and everywhere, anywhere. We provide a company you desire in terms of balanced and up-to-date news, programs, and the best of entertainment. Tune in to DSTV channel 251, GoTV channel 91, Freeview channel 264, or live streaming via www.visiontv.co.uk. Application for iOS or Android. You can also see us on Facebook and YouTube for quality content on the go. NTA International, Africa's window to the world.
This is the network service of the NTA.
are not married and they are doing this incredible.
Well, there's a myriad of things. So I think, first of all, we have to go back to the writer. You are very well known for your teaching skills. Your students speak a whole lot about you. Miss Nigeria competition.
And I said, you know, let's pick them up. Let's take them back to Nigeria and let's teach them a different kind of job.
It's always a joy to be on this platform, The Woman, where we bring you delectable ladies who are reaching out, touching lives, and, you know, compulsively making change around wherever they find themselves. Today, I have a lady who is, for me, very exciting, a lady who is very daring, a lady who, for her, it is not just enough to go to school and study. It is not just enough to make money, but it is a compulsive need to reach out to people, especially the young ones. Join me as I welcome Dr. Wumi Hassan, a computer specialist. Nice to have you on set.
Thank you.
All your life you've done science, and computer. I get to imagine people like Mike Zuckerberg and the physicist who just passed on, Stephen, you know, may he so rest in peace. But you look quite different. Maybe that's because you're a woman.
Perhaps.
All right, but I'm wondering, you know, a lot of people, women are going into what you're doing, but a lot of times we're finished, we don't really take it to the next level. But you have been, you know, taking it to not just the next level, but finding difference in what you're doing. What's the move? What's the push? What propels you?
Wow, that's a big one. But yes, first of all, let me say, I want to say thank God to my parents, my dad, my mom, especially my mother. She actually was a very great woman, and she's still alive, and I thank God for her. She's not literate. My mom didn't go to school, maybe just at the primary level, but she made up her mind that all her children, especially the females, must go to school.
That's great.
And of course, my father was a no person. I grew up in a family where if you don't go to school, you don't have anything to ask for. In other words, my father asks you every time, what have you done this period? And then what next for your school? So that was a great motivation. So I grew up in a family, though polygamous, that actually gave everybody an opportunity to think about your future. And so I went to school studying computer science, and I realized that there were quite a lot of interesting things about computer science. That time it was almost new, and everybody, I mean, my university were the second set, though it's a state university, you know. And then it was getting interesting to me that, oh, so we can actually be either a software programmer or an hardware person. And I particularly became interested in the hardware, interestingly. So it takes me to challenge the status quo, because it seems the mask you want to climb, it's for males. And then I was asking all the time, why can't I do it? We both learned in class. We all did very well in the school.
You and the boys.
And then you and the boys. And so why can't I do it? But unfortunately, the first slam I had was going for a job interview. And they told me, yes, you did very well. As a matter of fact, you came first. But because you are a lady, we think you can't do it. Wow. I cried out of the hall. I ran out. Then I was married, interestingly. So I ran to the shoulders of my husband, who just felt, no, that's not supposed to be. And so I volunteered to still work with them, even though they are not giving me full charge.
Okay.
So I just want to work. I just want to learn more. And that time, what was intriguing was the fact that beyond what people see as their computers that work, there are a lot of back-end activities that goes into what we see. So interestingly, my thesis at BSc was on client-server system, which gives me an opportunity to understand what they call the server end of the system. So what we see majorly is like a workstation, is like the client services. But the server head was another experience. And I got a motivation to love that with my what they call industrial training time. I work with an IT firm where two great men, today I give a shout out to them, Mr. Ayokupolui and Mr. Olarewaju Elijah. They motivated me. They looked at me and said, "Hey girl, what do you think you would do with us in hardware room?" So they initially would send me to the secretaries and said, "Go and learn Microsoft Word, learn PowerPoint. Those are things that ladies should do." And then I will go and learn, and I will come back and peep into the hardware room and see the guys, all the machines everywhere dismantled. And I'll come back and say, "But that's why I came for industrial training. Give me the chance to learn." And so when they saw that I was pushy, so
that spirit of never
yes,
giving up. A lot of people come around to learn IT, and then they are
just satisfied with carrying
papers.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I wasn't. And I was happy that both of them gave me a welcoming. And in fact, as a matter of fact, the BSc thesis, I chose the topic. They gave me the topic. So till tomorrow, I said to young people today as I mentor them, I didn't forget. In fact, I was speaking to my examiners as if I was talking to both of them in the office, because they make me every morning give an assignment, come back to the office and talk to them. It's not just write it down. I talk to them. So that builds me up. I learned to talk. You know, I came out of the normal female, you know, cocoon of just keep quiet. I didn't know so much, but doing the thesis, I learned a lot. And then fortunately, when I got married, I married to a man who was sending me, I was still sending to your young people a few days ago. My husband made me to sign that you are going to do your master's before having children. So that was like, wow, what is all of this?
So and for masters, you chose a very
so I went straight. Interestingly, at Awolowo University, I met with another great man who today is a celebrity in the industry. The professional, I mean, he's the president of the CPN, Professor Aderomu. Professor Aderomu became my master supervisor. And the first thing he told me is that I read your thesis or your dissertations, and I saw you did client server in your BSc. I am a mobile technology person, so I want you to go head on to that research, choose a career in that area. So I felt, oh, I saw a mentor in him immediately. So I chose, again, performance analysis of mobile client system. So that is like an upgrade of what I did in my BSc. So for me today, going along those academic, you know, opportunities became a force to make me understand that there's a career path. There's a difference between going to school and choosing a career. Many people go to universities and they can't place themselves within a career. But somehow I got to be seeing mentors. And that's why, like you said, where people go for industrial trainings, I ask them, why are you here? All my work life, I ask young people, why are you here? What do you want to gain after here? You may not have a clue when you are coming in, but understand the system of the office where you are working, and then see where you fit in, and then begin to look for one or two of them among the men.
Now, with your experience, with the young people, I know you're so much into mentorship. What do you think is the most challenging, issue for them? What's the most challenging issue for them?
Everybody wants a quick win or get rich quick attitude. That's what is the most. I just told you of what my experience was. I could have been out of the entire system at that pulpit of that office where they said, you are a lady, you can't do it. But I chose to volunteer. So they gave me a very interesting position, associate staff. For me, it was great. I worked there for over 1 year without a single day pay.
Now, did they get to value your inputs later?
Well, thankfully, yes, they did. And why? Because in between the working there, I started the NGO, which is actually to train women and girls in using computer. I felt if these people felt I'm so good, but I'm not good to work, but I'm good to train people, I can tell people what I know. For me, it was a good plus. You do interviews some places, they just tell you, sorry, we can't take you, you don't know why. But they called me in and told me, this is it, we knew you did very well. But sorry, because we needed a male figure who can do some more strenuous things in the work.
I'm beginning to wonder, why did they even make the advertisement open for everybody? They should have, from the time, inception,
that's a big
make it all male.
The industrial part of the country or sector should actually begin to think through some of these issues.
Do you think women need to work extra hard?
We really don't need to work extra hard. We just need to be ourselves. Sincerely, when I said, like we are trying to ask what I do with young people today, I tell the girls, don't look down on yourself. It doesn't matter what they say about you. Just go back to who you are. Every time I go back to, oh, I spoke in this place, and they say, oh, madam, you are very good. That was great. That becomes me, not the point. But the fact that I could go somewhere and you asked me to talk about what is computer, and I finish talking about what is computer, I say, oh, I got it. Oh, that means I can impact on you. That's good for me. And that's a motivation. So, in other words, it's not about what society plays you to be, but about who exactly you are. And so, for me, it was, maybe I should say this to you, you know, I actually graduated. When I say this to so many young people, very few of them, they don't believe it. I finished university. One course held me for 1 year in the university. But that didn't change the fact that I have something different inside of me. Today, some of my colleagues wonder, my PhD is almost about 10 years old. I finished my PhD in 2010, or graduated officially in 2010. I finished actually in 2018.
Meanwhile, you had one course that held you
exactly.
back.
Even despite that, then in the university, when that one course held me down, that was not enough to change who I am.
It wasn't a minus.
You know, it wasn't a minus. For me, it was actually an opportunity to learn more. And of course, I interacted more with some of my professors who I never met one-on-one. And that made me a different person. So
what has
been
the most challenging thing for you?
Well, in the industry, the most challenging is probably me. My time. I don't have enough time. A lot of time I tell my staff, I said, nobody, as far as I'm concerned, nobody is an hindrance. The only hindrance I have is me, when I can't meet up so many other things that are right before me. So again, you see, this way I'm talking, perhaps many Nigerians won't talk that way. Everybody wants to see an obstacle here and there. No, me, I don't see that. I've seen people, even when they are antagonizing what I'm doing, I see them as people that gives me ideas on what to do much more better next time. And so there's no enemy, there's nothing. I only have friends. And then I tell people, all the friends are either doing me good or good or good or good.
None does bad. I think I like that perception of life.
No, that's the way to go.
Quite interesting.
From the family setting, from the office setting, I'd worked with government for a period of time. And I had colleagues who felt, so where are you coming from? So the fact that you are running that ahead, that you have that experience, so what? And that's the way the civil service is. But no problem, I don't have a challenge with that. Rather, I take myself immediately and say, what next? So it's not a matter of barrier to see. Many women actually get so depressed almost immediately, either from the family. It could be your husband. And I want to give a shout out to my husband. You know, I tell people, with so much, and I'm happy that I'm saying this here, he's a great man. For you to have a husband that told you, no children the next 1 year or two, you need to finish your master's, because I had one of your uncles told me before we got married that, oh, marriage, why marriage? She's supposed to do her master's. And he kept it at the back of his heart. So immediately we settled in the marriage. He told me, sorry, no children now. You need to do your master's. So eventually, when I finished my PhD, I called out my uncle back in the US. I said, sir, today I defended my thesis and I'm a PhD holder.
And I'm ready to make
children. And I'm ready to move forward more. You know, so it's not just the master's that it was envisioning for me. It goes beyond that. But see, all of that were because, interestingly, I had so many men. You know, I didn't mention any lady to you. So many men, from university, BSc, to the camp, to masters, who were mentors. And so that's why I tell women today, it's not about gender equality, the way we put it, and rub shoulders. It's about finding the right people who can take you through who you need to be. And I want to celebrate all of them every time, anyway. Until tomorrow, till today, they are still part of my life. They are part of what we do in the NGO. There is always a fitting in for all of them to come in.
Your NGO, I'm really interested in that, because I had somebody speak about what you do, you know, for people. Talk to me about it. You train people besides training, what else?
We do training, we do capacity building, we do empowerment. And of course, we do a lot of networking. And people have asked me, what's the difference between training and capacity building? They are quite different. Empowerment is completely different. So today, when I meet people and I tell them, I said, you train to be an IT person, but you may not have capacity to operate as an IT person. And that's where the difference is. And you may not be empowered. Empowerment means that there is something after your training to make you start up. And that is empowerment. I came starting with the passion to train more women to be empowered. Girls should not have the kind of challenge I had, you know. And why? Because I felt girls should not go and apply for jobs. Like you just mentioned, what if the employers quickly just say, we don't want a lady to come in? For me, that was the only thing that looks saddening in my experience. And from a campus environment, that looks like, why should that happen? But for me, it wasn't such a bad problem. I just took a challenge and said, can I empower another woman? So that when they finish school or they are doing business or they are anywhere, they can actually stand on their own.
Okay, now 15 years down the line, do you think you've been able to, make a change in that direction?
By God's grace. By God's grace. I have people that have worked with us, that have been volunteers, that are doing their own businesses by themselves, are doing greater jobs elsewhere. We have an initiative called Women Leaders Forum. That's for the wives of the big people in the society who have the whole capacity to do many things, but they don't know what to do. So we tell them it's an opportunity to know technology and use it as a platform to develop the younger ones in the communities in everywhere. We train women in ICT, women that are like you in professional fields. You are in the media group, and there are quite a lot of things coming up. You need to keep tab about that, but you need to understand the basics so that will help you to move on. So in the public sector, we have trainings for women, and then we have empowerment for females that are back in the university, what we call our Ladies Summit. Those that are in the tertiary institution, who have hopes and aspirations like I do, and I did. And then we came out, and then you are wondering, what's next? And let me say this to us as women. So many things determine who we are in the future. When you are married to a man who doesn't believe in you going further in business, in professional cadres or career, you become an housewife, and you don't have a choice. And the social norms in the society has told us to obey our husbands. The holy books, like I believe in, the Bible tells me to submit to my husband. So if he says I can't walk, then I can't walk. Then I sit down. So, but what do you do even though you become an housewife in the future? You are a scientist. You are you read technology. You are an engineer. And yet you have any reason. One of my friends finds herself staying with her husband. It's not a bad town, but it's not Lagos. It's not Abuja, so I'm not mentioning the name of the town. So that nobody feels, so if we are here. But somewhere you don't expect, somewhere that you think it's not a social class. Everybody wants to finish and be in Lagos, be in Abuja, be in Port Harcourt, and all those great cities. But you find yourself in a small city. What do? You need to think inwards. Even myself, I get it very fascinating today that, so I can actually build the casing of a computer.
By yourself?
By myself. That means that if I can produce that, then the likes of local companies like Zynos, like Homatech, should consult me and begin to get my products. And that's what we are saying to women. We've learned it. We know the theories of it. Let's begin to do it. And we are happy that many people are ready to partner with us. Engineering technicians, who are those that are actually doing the rods, the cables and all of those stuff. And many other industries like that. Individuals that are doing things. We are calling more on them. The girls in school, interestingly, when we hosted the Women and Girls Summit last week, we saw that the girls, they produced the ATM machine.
ATM machine?
I can't believe it.
Done by girls?
With wood, with small cables inside. And they pushed the money in, and the money came out. I said, wow, this is interesting. So we want to do it more. We want to show Mr. President in the next couple of months. Are you joining me?
Yes, I am.
Yes, in the next couple of months and year coming, that Nigerian women who are scientists, who are engineers, can actually produce. Let's leave the men to whatever they like. But what we are saying is that we have women who have the brain. We are more passionate. We are more settled. And we can actually come together and harness who we are to begin to produce.
Now, women are passionate, and every other thing put together, we are talented. We are multitask. Somebody once said that we have multiple boxes in our brain, and we link them real perfectly well. And I know one of the boxes in our brain is a family box. You've talked so much about Mr. Hassan, your husband, and I'm wondering, the life of an engineer, the life of a computer person, the life of a scientist, a lot of times is very boring, a lot of times is very busy. How do you find time for family? How do you coordinate?
The interesting thing about my life and the career is that everything I want to do is on my laptop.
Including your family?
Everything is on my laptop in my career. So that means that my laptop can sleep by my bedside. That's my logic most of the time. And let me say this openly, you know. A lot of time people have asked me questions. How are you coping? Like you're trying to ask. I learned to separate issues. So I tell my staff, when we are in the office, interestingly, my office is in my house. People have been wondering, Dr. Azad, where is the office? Where did I give them the address? And they come, your house? I said, yes. I'd worked elsewhere, and I have seen a bit of the challenges that can come in between my work. Because
that's
with the IT work, you can actually stay on your laptop working and forget that time is gone. Maybe if you step out, you say, oh, it's really dark. Yes, it's dark. And so there's somebody and people, children, that will suffer it. So over time, even though my husband has been pushing, you guys should go out. We go out. We have a lot of partners we work with. But the official office of high-tech is in my house. So we've dedicated the study of the house to be high-tech office. And as I say to every woman, you know, it's a way of me encouraging every other woman to say, you don't need to be looking for anything elsewhere. The work that high-tech does, by the grace of God, is enormous. But we have a planning center, right? So I can actually make sure that lunch is ready before everybody comes back. I have a helper that works with us in the house, so she has her assignment. The office people will have our assignment. And when we are busy in the office, everything is out. And once it is 5 p.m., though we may have busy tasks that takes us beyond 5 p.m., we switch back to the house. So it's a switching mechanism inside of me, really. My husband is a pastor, so that means I'm a pastor. So what it means is that once I step out of the house to church, everything about office is forgotten. If messages come, I respond to them outside of church. And it's my job. In fact, my first job, I tell people my first degree is MRS. You know that MRS degree, Mrs. That's my first degree. So by God's grace, I have been able to do as much. And of course, with my job, it's very challenging. We travel a lot, locally, internationally. But I have a man who is understanding, who understands what I'm doing, who by God's grace have seen our progress in couples of years and could say, oh, thank God for you.
If men get to support the women, the women will go places.
We will go a long place. In
That's
fact,
good to know.
We will go places. I can tell you that sometimes somebody made a small comment to my husband. I said, oh, you gave her 1 bit and she's flying 10 inches. My husband said she was at home for 4 years doing nothing. And nobody came to sympathize with me and find out how we were coping. So if God has helped her to start and she's moving on, I should support her.
I think we should actually have a way of saying our big thank you to
yes,
Dr. Hassan. A big thank you for supporting your wife and by extension, all women. Because all men should actually toe that line. That's my thoughts.
Seriously.
Thank you so much.
I really encourage a lot of women and husbands to please give it out. Just give it a try. Initially, it wasn't funny. He was not so understanding what I'm doing. Oh, why don't you get to office and come back and like everyone? But when I started going to office, of course, too, I put in all my time. And he knew that I was progressively making an impact. By God's grace, I work with the agency where we produce the first science, technology, and innovation policy for Nigeria, proudly led by my little girl sitting here. So he saw all of those progressions and he could work with me. He's a doctor. He also is into family health. So we do a lot of things in policy. My PhD is on policies. So I work with policymakers. I come up with policy programs for organizations, with governments. So he sees all of that. And that is impactful. And I always made a joke to him. I said, you know, everybody may not know Biodun Azan, but they know Wunmi Azan. And it is not Wunmi Ojo, my father's name. It is Wunmi Azan. So it is you they know. By knowing me. So anyhow nice. It is, the family, the work life, the church, everything by God's grace is balanced. And you don't want to know that I do some small businesses too. that keeps me going as a woman. You know, it's just a woman
I told you, women, we're multitask.
Women
and we never get tired.
Yes.
When you think we're getting down, we're getting up. All we ask is the men should give us the support. Thank you so much, Wumi Hassan, Dr. Wumi Hassan. Like she said, it's not Wumi Ojo. It is Wumi Hassan.
Yes.
That's the husband's glory. So what it tells us is the men should please give us more support to get to succeed in life, because when we do, really, the glory goes back to you. On that lovely note, I beg to take my leave now on the show, The Woman. Please continue to be supportive of the women, and the women, please never look down on yourself, because you're the spice, the salt of the earth. Bye for now.
That are not married, and they're doing this incredible.
Well, there's a myriad of things. I think first of all we have to go back to
the writer. You are very well known for your teaching skills. Your students speak a whole lot about you.
Miss Nigeria competition.
I said, you know, let's pick them up, let's take them back to Nigeria, and let's teach them a different kind of job.
wannan labarin ma yana peji na 36.
Ita kuma babban labarin wannan jarida shine ainihin
labarin da ke gaban jarida shine ta bayyana cewa
ọkwa ji ikenga eziokwu
nwanne m nwoke
Ikechukwu Ndukwe Igbo
mam iji wee mee ka ụbọchị na-aga n'anya ya
nation fún ti òwúrọ̀ yìí ibẹ̀ náà ti sọ pé àwọn ìgbìmọ̀ aláṣẹ ìpínlẹ̀ Benue pàṣẹ wípé
ní gbogbo àwọn ẹ̀ka ní ẹ̀ka ètò ẹ̀kọ́ ní ẹ̀ka ètò ìlera ní ẹ̀ka ètò ààbò.
There's just something about speed and simplicity, but that speed and simplicity can be deceiving when you get behind the wheel. 30-year-old Emily sent this text message to her husband: "I love you and I'll try to make you happy." Moments later, Emily was killed when her car slammed into the back of a tractor trailer. 18-year-old Midi was also texting when his car slammed into the back of a truck at 80 miles per hour. His final text was,
"Driving and Facebooking is not safe. Ha ha."
You probably think that this thing can happen to you. You are not alone. 55% of young adult drivers say that it is easy to text and drive. 3/4 of the same young adults feel that they are really good texting behind the wheels. Reality is, they are all delusional. That quick look at your phone takes longer than you think. 5 seconds are really long. Imagine you're driving on the road and someone suddenly covers your face for 5 quick seconds, like this. You will probably feel very lucky if you didn't crash. But you chose to take your sight off the road just like that anytime you're sending or reading a text. Texting and driving is fast becoming the leading cause of teens' death on the road world over, surpassing even drinking and driving. But if you think dying in a car crash is the worst thing that happened to you, I tell you it is not. You can survive.
Hello and welcome. Here is an update of the news. A crucial meeting of the National Assembly, National Council it's on the way at the Presidential Villa. President Muhammadu Buhari summoned the meeting to chart the best way forward in respect of the prevailing challenges of security bedeviling the country. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports that the meeting is the fourth to be convened in the last 6 weeks. Attending the strategic engagement are Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, Ministers of Defense, Interior, Justice, Police and Foreign Affairs, as well as the National Security Advisor. Others are the service chiefs led by the Chief of Defense Staff, Chief of Defense Intelligence and other critical stakeholders. The meeting is coming barely 1 week after President Buhari read a riot act to arsonists, bandits, insurgents and other criminal elements undermining national security that they will be treated in the language they understand. The fourth Nigerian International Petroleum Summit, the African Petroleum Technology and Business Conference, is resolved to turn the global crisis occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic to opportunities. The theme of the summit, From Crisis to Opportunities, New Approaches to the Future of Hydrocarbons, the key players say is indicative that though it cannot be business as usual, collaborations and innovations to align with the best of producers to stay afloat cannot be compromised to this end. However, the President, Muhammadu Buhari, gave a commitment to making Nigeria a credible investment destination.
We expect that we will begin to look at opportunities for developing our local capacity because of what the pandemic did to us.
Today, the whole world is transiting towards more renewables, and energy companies must see that opportunities, both in terms of producing the current resources and also moving to new resources, renewables, solar, wind, and other resources that are available. But for us, most importantly, the world will still be utilizing gas for a long time to come.
Very hopeful that we will be able to pass it this month of June. And I want to appreciate the cooperation and partnership between the two arms of government, the legislature and the executive arm. We have been able to really cement the relationship so that we are able to work together seamlessly.
And that's the update for the news now. Join us at 1 for another update. I am Patricia Asamiluba. Thanks for being part of it.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Nnamdi Odipo. On this episode, I will be having a chat with an interesting figure, and our conversation will span maritime safety, politics, and governance. Of course, there will be other conversations along the way, and my colleague Elizabeth Omori will be leading one of them.
Well, on today's edition, we will also be gender sensitive as we will be taking a look at menstrual hygiene management, factors and myths surrounding the subjects.
Very well then, let's get started. We'll begin our first conversation on the states of the nation about drawing on specific events, the cause and effects variables, and of course we'll talk about the way forward. My guest is Dr. George Mohalu. He has won many caps over the decades, but currently he is the Managing Director, National Inland Waterways Authority, NIWA. Welcome to Insight.
Thank you very much, Nnamdi.
I reckon we could begin with the latest from the Kebbi boat mishap. What do you know for a fact about the search and recovery operation for the remaining missing passengers?
Let me begin by extending my condolences to the people, the government and the people of Kebbi State and Niger State also, because I understand some passengers are from Niger. It's a very sad thing, very, very sad, because the information available so far, though the investigation is still ongoing, because my team is in Kebbi investigating what actually happened so that we can have a report. But the interim reports I'm receiving is that the accident was a consequence of one, overloaded vessels, to the state of the vessel, and then the fact that the passengers are not properly kitted. So these are the basic information I've received so far, but they are still working to get a comprehensive detail which we can share with the public. But it's very sad because every effort is being made to ensure that these protocols are fully observed. But sad enough, you find out that the people try, in an attempt to avoid what the protocols we have put in place. They either go to take off from points that are not recognized. They probably take off from points that have no jetties and what have you, and then go to risk people's life. Because if they they board these vessels at any of designated jetties, even newer jetties or even the jetties that, although we don't own them, but are designated, there's no way you can be allowed to board your vessels if the protocols are not fully observed.
I do know that we've had 2 major incidents this year alone. And in spite of the danger posed by overloading, like you've mentioned, of boats and vessels, the practice has continued to rear its head. How exactly has NIWA been tackling that issue alongside other subsisting challenges such as poor water craft? And of course, there's also the issue of leakages above and below the surface. Of course, these are only some of the contributory factors for accidents on the waterways.
You're quite correct when you say that. As an organization, we have done quite a lot in this regard. The issue of sensitization, we don't joke with it. We lay emphasis on it. And we've been doing that regularly to sensitize our people, to bring them to the knowledge of the challenges, to bring them to understand that doing things outside the laid down protocols exposes them to danger. We've been sensitizing them. We've continued to do that, and we will continue to do that. We also have intensified our enforcement. Our newer police are busy, very busy now, trying to force vessels that are not seaworthy or riverworthy to be on water. We get them impounded. In some cases, we impound them permanently and get them discarded, and then ask the owners to scrap them. We are doing that, but I think we will continue. We'll continue to enforce these protocols because we can't afford to sit and watch our people die. Okay, but it's quite a very painful experience when you are told or you hear about incidences like this and people die. It hurts you. It hurts one personally, and at the same time, it kind of creates an image problem for the organization. Right. So we have that as a challenge, and we're addressing it. You will not believe it. I went to Yauri myself. I went to Kebbi. I launched a new vessel. In fact, one of the decisions I took, I'm supposed to go to Kebbi within this week, is to provide vessels now. We want to now see to what extent we can provide small vessels, crafts that we can put in these locations. We get some partners to partner with us so that we can lease it out to them, or where we don't find qualified people we want to deal with, we handle them ourselves by way of even providing the captains, those who are going to operate these vessels. We want to provide some vessels on some of these very sensitive routes because the Kebbi incident is a consequence of people trying to take advantage of what is available and go after the end of their market day. So that created the pressure, and then there became a surge, and a lot of people wanted to use the vessel at the same time. So in this situation, you find out that the vessel was bound to be overloaded. But because they did not take off from designated points where we have these jetties that we are policing, we would have, I'm certain that my people would have halted either the vessel from moving or getting the number of passengers on it to be drastically reduced. Because the vessel that carried close to 180 persons, like I was being told, is not a vessel that has the capacity to carry that number of passengers. It should not, for any reason, do that. And then I want to also use this platform you have provided me to appeal to our people to please obey protocols. We have been going around, we've been sensitizing them, we've been appealing to them. It is your life that you are exposing to unnecessary and avoidable risk. If you don't go by 10 a.m. in the morning, you can go by 12. If you don't go by 12, you can go by 3. If you don't go by 3, you can go by 4 or 5, but not after 6 o'clock. For example, it is against the rule now, based on the protocols we release, for any vessel to take off from any designated jetty after 6:30 p.m. because most of these vessels do not have night navigational aids.
Exactly.
So and if you look at the number of accidents that happen, most accidents from statistics either happen late in the night or very early in the morning. Okay, when the day has not really broken. So you find out that the navigational aids that are required to operate at these times of the day are not available on these crafts. And when they are not there, it becomes a blind alley. I agree with you, there are challenges also of breakages,
yes,
obstacles on the way. Yes, well, and if you look at our annual budgets, taking it from the past 5 years upwards or 6 years upwards, you find that every year there are provisions we make for removal of water hyacinth, for removal of wrecks and what have you, and we have been consistently. We have consistently done this. But don't lose sight of the fact that these are not one-off things. It's not something that you remove once and then it's over. These things are things that keep occurring. Water hyacinth keeps growing. You remove them this season, by next season they have come back again. You keep cutting them. They're just like wrecks. Wrecks are things that come up on a regular basis. A vessel can get broken down and then becomes irreparable. The owners usually will abandon them there. Okay, and when they abandon them, they become wrecks. So, tree stumps and even rock formations.
Yes.
Like in our 2021 budget proposals that was approved by National Assembly, we have provision now to do some rock blasting, which we intend to do in Yauri, for example, because we have cases. Even when I visited Yauri last year, when I went to commission a vessel that was built for that area, I engaged with His Majesty the Emir of Yauri. And the major complaint he presented before us when we came as a management on a courtesy visit was the issue of rocks on that channel. And there was the need for us to now see what we can do to remove them. So that informed our putting it in the budget, and by the grace of the National Assembly and Mr. President, we're able to have some provision for us to be able to deal with these rock formations. So we do some rock blasting this time. It's not something that we don't have the resources to complete all once, but we keep doing them as resources. We are availed of resources. We keep doing them, but we are really, really, really concerned about these mishaps.
Yes.
And I will use the opportunity to plead with our people to please obey protocols. We have said vessels should not be overloaded.
Yes.
We have said vessels should not operate outside the approved hours. We've said for any passenger to enter any of our vessels, you must be properly kitted. You must wear the life jackets, and the life jackets must be ones that have not expired. Because up till date, people don't know that some life jackets are expired. Life jackets have a lifespan. Some of them are expired, and people still go and wear them. When you stop them and remove it from them, they will now start accusing our people of being high-handed. But like I've told our enforcers, the police and some of our staff, please let them call you any name. Let them be alive and call you a name than they are dead and not calling you names.
I think it's very important we step up the tempo in the enforcement of these safety guidelines. I mean, these guidelines, and they're in place for a reason. And so, I mean, much as NIWA has been doing all it can, I think it's also important that that we enforce or increase the enforcement of this. I know a bit of your antecedents, and I'm pretty sure you brought a wealth of experience to NIWA. How is that panning out for you and for NIWA, especially in the utilization and commercialization of the waterways? And to what extent have we been able to practically implement the Cabotage Act?
All right, you see, Thank you for the compliment as to one coming with experience. Yes, you're right. When I came into office, I set specific targets for myself and then the agency. And by the grace of God, we are moving on gradually to be able to actualize those targets we've set for ourselves. One of the things we told ourselves is that we must make our waterway viable. In fact, the statement I made, which references are being made to today, is that I said, by the time I leave office, I want to find myself in a situation where water transportation becomes a transport means of choice, both for human and cargo. So that is the major, the bottom line of what we have decided to do, what we are determined to do, what we are committed to do. If you look at, quite recently, you must have heard over the media of the efforts we are making to get Onitsha River Port functional. You must also have heard what we are trying to do to make sure that the channels between One in River State and Onitsha is open. We've done a test run using bringing cargo by water. We're about to do another test run now, Lagos to Onitsha. We're also trying to make that channel also functional. Okay. We have also made efforts to get cargo moved from Lagos seaport to Burutu. There's a port in Burutu, long old port with a good depth that have not been put into effective use. We are seeing to what extent we can move consignments from Lagos to Burutu, so that from Burutu now we can use flat bottom barges to now move them in smaller quantities to Onitsha River Port, those going to Port Harcourt and what have you. So these are the areas we are laying so much emphasis, because we believe very strongly that the moment we're able to achieve a very viable water transportation system, one, apart from the role it's going to play in boosting our economy, is going to reduce pressure on our roads.
On the roads?
Pressure on our roads, because our roads are not designed to carry the pressure that is carrying today. Correct. And that is the truth. Because if you look at the capital outlay, if you look at the investment we are making on a regular basis in road maintenance, it should not be so. Our roads are not designed to carry the kind of weight it's carried. And if you look around the whole world, you find out that bulk cargo is usually moved either by rail or by water. Exactly. Yes, either by rail or water. And let me also use the opportunity and commend government for the effort that is being made to get our rail fully functional. And then the support we've been receiving also from the ministry, both ministers, PAMSEC, directors, everybody is concerned, and they share our sentiment. They want to encourage us to actualize our vision so that water transportation can become effective. The moment we're able to achieve this, I can bet you, apart from the employment opportunities it's going to provide, it's going to open up our rural communities. Exactly. And then the Lagos port will certainly be decongested. Because if you look at statistics that is available, over 60–70% of the cargo that arrive Lagos port are designated either for Onitsha or for Aba. They're for the east. Therefore, if it means that 10 million containers, for example, are going to the east, that's an example. If 10 million containers are going to the east, what that translates to is that 20 million trailers will be on the road. 10 million taking the cargo and 10 million taking back the empty containers. So, and these are all avoidable once we have a viable water transportation system.
It's laudable that we know this. I mean, these are facts. These are things that work in other climes. In the U.S., for instance, we have an idea of just how much road waterway transportation plays and all of that. And I hope with some of what we have on the ground and where we're headed to, we will get it right. But enough of NIWA now. I'd like for us to move ahead. And I'd like to take you up on the agitation for a more people-driven constitution and the ongoing efforts at amending the 1999 constitution. Some have argued that as a document, it doesn't aggregate our collective aspirations as a people and a nation state. In fact, they said it falls short. It falls short of that aspiration. I've had a guest or some guests on this program speak on this issue, and so I'd like your take on the matter. What are some of the core issues for you, and what actions would you like to see the National Assembly take imminently with regards to amending the 1999 Constitution?
All right, it's a case of one crying over spilled milk, because the milk is already spilled. The process of amending the Constitution is already on course. But for me, I think that
Actually, it's been on course for over 22 years now.
Yes, but they're now doing public hearings and sittings across the country.
Yes.
But I think for me, the major challenge here is not about amending the Constitution, but about implementing the Constitution.
Okay.
Being committed to implementing it. Yes, we may not
So
have...
you do not agree with those who say there are existing lacunas in the Constitution?
No, that's not what I mean. You see, while I agree that there's need for openings, for closing openings or amending constitutions, because amendment of constitution is a continuous process. It's not a one-off thing. No. Even if we do all the amendments, we accommodate all the amendments, as we evolve as a people, certainly there may be need again. Emerge, yes. New issues may come. There may be need again for us to review the constitution, for us to amend it. So for me, constitutional amendment is a process. But I want to say that there must be a commitment both from the political class, the leaders, and the people for us to sincerely believe that we must obey, we must implement whatever constitution we have. That commitment must be started from everybody, so that if the amendments that is being proposed now are completed, then let us implement it to the letter. Let us implement it to the letter. Let us show commitment to it. Because once we are able... It's just like laws. There are sufficient laws we have in this country, but the question now is, are we implementing those laws? Are we obeying those statutes that we have put in place? The answer, you agree with me, is no. So what we need, more emphasis now should be a natural reorientation. Let us change our orientation. Let us become refocused. Let us understand the dynamics. Let us make up our minds that whatever constitution that we eventually will adopt, that we will obey it. We will implement it to the letter. The moment we extract this commitment from every one of us, me inclusive, the moment we extract this commitment, I'm sure we are good to go.
So you throw up the issue of national orientation, and I'm particularly keen to hear your opinion on how best to inspire patriotic citizenship, the one that could evolve a unique leadership style that aligns with our peculiarities to address our development needs, and of course vice versa, knowing that in most cases patriotism is hinged or could be hinged on quality leadership.
You see, the truth about it is that we who are in responsible positions of leadership today, because when I have found the opportunity to discuss the issue of leadership, I keep telling people it is not only political leadership that is important. We have leadership in our homes. We have leadership in our churches. We have leadership in various organizations. You mustn't be president to be a leader. You mustn't be governor to be a leader. You must be local government chairman to be, because we are looking at it strictly from the political perspective. So all of us who are in leadership position, both as parents, both as leaders, teachers, responsible people holding responsible positions, that we should live a life that will encourage the youth to follow our path.
Leadership by example.
We must show the example. We must show commitment. We must show dedication. We must be seen to be responsible in our actions and in our deeds. It's not a case of saying something and doing exactly the opposite. We must demonstrate this commitment. Even in our homes, we must get our children to understand what the realities of the moment are. That there is honor in being a good citizen. We must show love for this country. It keeps reminding me of what they quote by Kennedy. I hope I get it right. That is not about asking for what the nation will do for you, but what you do for the nation. Okay, we must have this imbibed in our minds. We must get it in our schools, even our very young children. We must educate them, bring them to love this country, because we must change our orientation. We must make people understand that about honor. It's not about how rich you are now, but it's more of how honorable are you. And you mustn't be in the National Assembly or State Assembly to be honorable. You can be honorable in your house. You can be honorable in the way you carry yourself. You can be honorable in the kind of life you live. You can be honorable in your ability to say no to evil. What is bad, no matter the coloration. So this orientation, we must get it to go down from our homes to our children, to our offices, wherever we are working, whatever we are doing. Let us be honorable in such acts so that people can copy us. There's something I saw on social media. It made me laugh, but at the same time, it pained me.
Okay. Would you like to share?
A young boy was asked what he would like to be when he grows up. And the boy is smiling. He's about 5, 6 years. He said he likes to be a Yahoo boy.
Oh, my word.
And that's what he said. And smiling. And unfortunately, the person asking him the question, an adult, was also excited. Smiling. That the boy said what he wants to be when he grows up is a Yahoo boy.
That's quite unfortunate.
Very unfortunate.
It's a reflection of where the society
is going, where we are now. And the person, the adult who interviewed, let me use the word interview, who interviewed the boy, was excited, was smiling with their phone.
And that is ignorance.
Yes, I felt very pained. At the same time, it was funny. But it pained me. Initially, my initial reaction was, can this be true? At the same time also, when it now dawned on me what the boy said.
I get the sense of when you talk about national orientation and you throw up a scenario like this, and it speaks to the issue at the core of our collective existence and continued existence as a nation. Of course, I do agree that there has to be a total overhaul, like a reorientation, towards patriotism, towards citizenship and all of that. One more question on leadership and citizenship, and then we'll quickly go to other issues at the sub-national level. And this is quite important for me and for Nigerians watching. Ethnic nationalism, it is a multifaceted challenge for us as a country. How can we best build trust and resolve ethnic agitations arising in certain quarters? I mean, it's there. They're all over the place.
It's a very major challenge today in the country because of the various agitations you are hearing now. Some of them informed, some of them misinformed. Okay, some of them based on gathered sentiments. So these are very challenging times for us as a people. But I think that we as leaders at various levels should engage ourselves in discussion.
Okay.
We should be talking. I keep saying it that we have a lot more to gain as a nation, as a big country we are, a lot more to gain than what being divided. So I think that we should be talking, because if you look at history, every agitation, every disagreement, every war has ended on the negotiating table.
Talking and taking actions to redress some of the identified challenges. Shouldn't that be the case?
Yeah, no, it's part of the talking process.
Okay.
Because if, like I said, every fight, every quarrel, every disagreement, every war has ended on the negotiating table. So what I usually will tell people is, why do we have to quarrel before we go to the negotiating table? Why don't we go straight to the negotiating table instead of doing the interregnum or fighting? Why don't we avoid that period and go straight to the negotiating table, discuss, and then come to a conclusion and reach agreements? For us as responsible leaders at various levels, coming from various ethnic nationalities, because we are all from various ethnic nationalities, we engage ourselves, we talk at subnational levels, we discuss so that we can be able to come to terms with positions, and then we create opportunities for negotiation. The truth still remains that we are a nation of many tribes, we're a nation of many nationalities, so we need still to be talking at all levels. And one platform that should be taking full advantage of is a platform provided us by the National Assembly.
Okay.
Because the National Assembly will have representatives across all ethnic nationalities, across all the subnational borders, so that we can all meet. Our leaders at these levels can engage even other leaders who are outside their own level to tap into their knowledge, tap into the wisdom of the elder statesmen, come up with positions that they can negotiate with their colleagues, so that at the end of the day, every interest will be carried along. The important thing here for me is that we need to be talking, and every nation, a young nation like ours, is a work in progress. We need to be talking, we need to be engaging ourselves, we need to be sharing ideas, we need to be fair, just, and equitable in the sphere of resources.
Let's quickly run along here, Dr. Mohalu. One of the core agitations making the rounds currently is the crusade for fiscal federalism. But sometimes I find the clamor for resource control rather confusing, and I'm being quite honest here. I often wonder if the agitation is contingent on the need for revenue generation, as I put that against the near total dependence of states on monthly allocations from the center. Why are some states, if not most of them, unable to create streams of incomes, despite the inherent economic potentials?
Now, this is a question you will address to the governors themselves who are running the states.
Well, don't you find it quite amusing?
Yeah, well, because I think that as a nation now, we are faced with the realities of the moment. And the reality of the moment now is that our mainstay, which is oil, we don't control it. And whatever challenges we have in the oil industry affects our economy directly, because that has been our mainstay. Fortunately, this government has shifted a little bit of emphasis from oil to investment in the agricultural sector. That is why today we're no more talking about importation of rice, for example. The emphasis now is moved to agriculture and then solid mineral development. And one thing you will find out is that as a nation, we are blessed. And I'm not sure there's any state that has no solid mineral. And most of our states, if not all, have the potentials for growth and development. So the question now is, what are the leaders of the subnationals, what are the leaders, the governors doing to tap the resources in their various states? We have both the human and material resources. They all abound in every state. The other day on an interview like this, I said it, and I'm convinced about it, that every state, every road, street in this country has the capacity to produce a complete federal cabinet. Every street. What that translates to is that we don't lack in human resources across the country. Therefore, we have to deploy this advantage that we have into productive gains. We have to look at what we have as a people and then look inwards, because now the cost of oil, fortunately, it started coming back, but don't forget there was a time oil dropped to less than $30 a barrel. In this administration, we're not talking about what we have in the books. We're talking about the reality of the moment. At that point, don't forget also that but for the federal government's bailout, most states were unable to pay their salaries. Don't forget, over 20-something states were unable to pay their salaries until the intervention of the federal government that provided them with bailouts. So our governors, our leaderships in the subnationals in the states have to look inwards. We have to think out of the box. We have to look at how do we make our states viable? How do we make our states function? How do we be independent? Independent in the sense of independent in our resources, independent in our management of resources, independent in our revenue generation, so that whatever happens at the center will not affect us. So that at the end of the day, whatever we get at the center, we can decide to be saving it for the rainy day. We can decide to invest it, so that we can also see that as a source of additional revenue for the states. But we really need to think inwards. We need to look at our resources. We need to look backwards and see what we can do as a people in our various states, so that we can even be independent of the center, should there be any reason why we have to rely entirely on what we generate.
We're just about, overused our time, but I cannot let you go if without talking about elections generally in Nigeria. But quickly, before we go into that in depth, what are your thoughts on the attacks on critical national assets in some parts of the country? The southeast, I know, has been mostly affected, I think, but the president has promised to shock, like he said, the arsonist. Do you think that will turn the tide?
It's most unfortunate. It's very painful that we are destroying our own resources. We are destroying our investments. Because the truth is that it is also the taxpayers' money that will be used again to rebuild this. These are the reality. Except in some areas where some of these police stations, for example, that are being destroyed are community built. Some of them were funded by the communities to develop their areas. Now we have burnt them. So what that means again is either the community will have to contribute money again, tax themselves to rebuild it, or that the federal government or state government will take money from the taxpayers' money to rebuild these buildings or institutions that were destroyed. So it's a case of cutting our nose to spite our face. Because we are now using our money that would have used for something else to now rebuild this infrastructure. So it's very, very unfortunate and painful. So my appeal here is that let us talk.
Like you said.
Let us talk. Let us create platforms to talk. If there are disagreements, put them on the table. If there are issues that need to be resolved, put them on the table. We discuss it, we must come to an agreement point where we have peace. Because if we make our states ungovernable, our communities ungovernable, it is ourselves. And don't forget that these security agents we are killing today are people's brothers, people's parents, people's relations, people's husbands. And that's not fair. And my Bible tells me that anybody who sheds blood will pay. No matter, it may take time. You may try to pretend about it, but the reality of it is that we have no reason, we have no justification to shed any blood.
We're still talking elections now, and very quickly as well. I know the Anambra governorship polls is the next major elections for INEC. Just the other day, I was speaking with a public affairs analyst, Nasra Umar Kogo, on the existence of political rights against actual exercise of these rights and the impact on elections. It is somewhat implied that the political class is responsible for what we see playing out in elections in Nigeria in terms of turnout and exercise of political rights. Do you agree or disagree with that position? And two, what actions can we take as a country to improve public participation in elections while we still contend, of course, with the issues of money politics and electoral violence?
Yes, some aspects of his posturing, I agree with him. The political class has a responsibility. One, in terms of mobilizing the people to come out to vote, encouraging them to vote, is more or less, apart from the fact that the election authority, which is INEC, has a role to play in terms of sensitization, in terms of reassurances. Because time was when it became a case of confidence. People believed that INEC was not doing what it was supposed to do, therefore I'm not bothered, whatever it throws out is acceptable. But now I think that perspective is changing. That perception, is changing very drastically. People are beginning to see that their votes count. So we need to emphasize that those of us in the political class should also be able to get our people to be conscious of this and then get involved, because it is about the people. And like I keep telling people, you can't keep complaining from the sideline. You can use your vote to determine the caliber or the quality of the person you want to lead over you, the person or caliber of person you want to run the affairs of your state or your immediate environment. So you have a vicarious responsibility. If you don't get involved, if you don't vote, if you don't participate, you should also be willing to take the blame of whatever comes out of it. So INEC themselves have a role to play. We, the politicians, have a role to play. We need to do what is right. Again, I'm very critical, is that the political parties must also evolve. They must also grow out of the process of manipulating the internal dynamics. The internal politics of every political party must be made to be seen to be free, fair, and credible, because it is where it begins. If the people don't have confidence in the process that threw up a candidate, certainly the interest will wane.
We've seen gerrymandering play out in the past.
Correct. Interest will wane, and once that happens, they allow you to go and stew in your own juice.
Finally, Dr. Mohalu, at this point, of course, we cannot talk about elections in broad. We can only talk about elections in broad and generic terms as it affects the upcoming Anambra election. So I would ask you a question, and I hope you can answer without prejudice. What do you think is next for a state like Anambra in terms of leadership and development?
It's very clear. It's very clear. We need to refocus ourselves. We need to elect a credible leader who has the interest of the people at heart, who has a vision, who has a plan, who is experienced, who has the capacity to deliver on the mandate. We must make our time to seek for the right person and give him opportunity for him to now move our state to where it's supposed to be. It's agreeable by everybody that Anambra State is such a state that is so blessed with human and material resources, but that we are not where we should be in the committee of states. So we need a driver who is a servant leader who is going to now be able to drive the process so that we can get to our desired destination.
Thank you so much. This is where we'll draw the curtain on this conversation, and I want to thank you so much for all of your insights on the issues that we've raised. Dr. George Mohalu, Managing Director, National Inland Waterways Authority, NIWA. Thank you so much for coming on Insights.
Thank you very much, Nnamdi, and thank you, viewers.
Moving on now, I would like to bring up a conversation on the environment against the backdrop of the recently commemorated World Environment Day. It is globally celebrated on June 5 annually by about 143 countries. The theme for this year's celebration is ecosystem restoration. To discuss these and more, I have joining me via telephone from Ida in Kogi State, Dr. Nuhu Solomon Ayegun, Provost College of Health Sciences and Technology, Ida, and an environmental health advocate. Welcome to Insight.
Yeah, welcome, sir. Thank you very much for having me.
I'm sure you have a clear picture of where we stand in terms of public awareness and consciousness on environmental issues by virtue of your position. I mean, you just left the position as Deputy National President, Environmental Health Officers Association of Nigeria. And so tell us, what is the level of public awareness on the imperatives for protecting the environment, considering that the quality of the environment to a large extent determines the quality of our health?
Yeah, as at today, if we want to be particular about this country, Nigeria, the level of awareness concerning environmental protection is very low. But for other countries of the world, we are seeing it on the social media. They are carrying out the awareness. But again, on our own side as professionals, we are trying our best through a diverse type of public enlightenment concerning environmental protection. You will agree with me that when you talk about environment, it has different components. We have the physical component of the environment. We have the biosphere. We have the lithosphere. We have and these different components of the environment today is being greatly affected by anthropogenic activities. And people are doing this thing ignorantly. So there is the need for us to intensify on our sensitization on the members of the public so that they will be able to come up with good behavior that will protect the environment.
You've turned up the issue of anthropogenic factors, activities per se, and it's quite per se. It's a quite a pervasive challenge. Whether you're talking about the Sahel or whether you're talking about the savanna lowlands in the southeast, and even when you go as far as the deep rainforest in the Niger Delta, and of course in the southwest as well, the damage is being wreaked mostly by man-made activities that are palpable and worrisome. The environment disasters that pervades the Nigerian space is quite massive and huge. Paint a vivid picture for me and for the viewer of how dire the situation is and the outlook if we continue down the path of destruction.
Yes, the activities of man, which we call anthropogenic activities, that is actually endangering the environment, activities. We talk about even road construction, industrial activities that lead to the emission of gases into the atmosphere, even automobiles, motorcycles, vehicles, airplanes that are moving around, they are emitting different types of greenhouse gases, which is contributing to global warming and climate change. And again, today, even agricultural activities, people have changed from mechanized method of farming to the use of chemicals. These chemicals are being applied upon the soil. They are applied even to bodies of waters like rivers, seas, oceans, rivulets, and lakes. They are using them for fishing. All these are quite inimical to the environment, the different species, the biodiversity in the environment. And that is what we are talking about, so that people should come up with better behavior that will bring about environmental sustainability.
But when we speak about eco-restoration, of course, that's the theme for this year's celebration. I often wonder how expansive public policies are and whether there are corresponding actions, to reflect that work is actually and really indeed being done.
Yeah, this is the problem we have worldwide. We talk so much, but we carry out actions a little. We have different types of environmental agreement that has been reached by the United Nations and different countries of the world, like the Kyoto Protocol, the Montreux Protocol on substance that deplete the ozone. We have the World Heritage Convention, Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of World Flora and Fauna. We have the Paris Agreement. We have the Convention on Biological Diversity. All these are different treaties that have been signed, but there's little actions, corresponding actions, and that is why this problem is not abated. This problem is not mitigated. As I'm talking to you, climate change is on the increase, and we are seeing a lot of effects, a lot of variation in climatic weather conditions. You see some places where we have, where we used to have heavy rainfall is having scanty rainfall, and the places where we used to have scanty rainfall we are experiencing heavy rainfall. All these are factors that is associated with climate change, and we can see very uncomfortable weather conditions and all that. So these are the problem. There is a lot of treaties, a lot of agreement reached, a lot of stories, but there is no there's no corresponding action, and that is why the problem remains as it is.
I'm sure you've seen the revised climate change policy in Nigeria. I think it's quite a recent one. What are your thoughts on the revision?
It revised in the sense that they are trying to reinvigorate activities that will really mitigate climate change. I'm sure that is the direction they are going. But again, there are some very notable actions that we need to take that will really mitigate climate change. Actions like afforestation, for example, planting of trees, which we are advocating that individuals, philanthropies, corporate organizations, government at all levels, be it local government, state government, and federal government, should vigorously carry out afforestation, planting of trees, which is a major factor that actually can mitigate climate change because it is going to carry out a regulatory function on the temperature of the environment. I want to believe that if we move in this direction, definitely climate change will be greatly controlled.
I know there have been increased activity with regards to afforestation, like you've said here in Nigeria. I mean, for a couple of years now, there have been efforts to increase tree planting and reduce tree felling across Nigeria, but then the program still subsists. But again, I would like to revisit the issue of cause and effect and ask you about the economic impact of man-made negative environmental activities and those caused by natural disasters as well. I mean, what do we stand to lose if we continue this path? I recall asking you this question at the very beginning.
The effect of this negative activity on the environment is so diverse. It is affecting our agricultural productivity, because remember that if this climate change persists, then I told you earlier that there's going to be variation in climatic conditions. Where we used to have heavy rainfall for agriculture, it will no longer be there. The agriculturists, the farmers will be losing a lot of agricultural products, because when there is drought, you will know that the crops cannot do very well. It will actually affect crop yield. So that is one very negative impact. And again, when there used to be scanty rainfall, there is heavy rainfall. And you know that when there is heavy rainfall in an environment, there is proliferation of mosquitoes and some types of insects. These insects are carriers of different types of diseases. For example, mosquitoes, we have different species. We have the Aedes mosquito, we have the Anopheles mosquito, we have the Culex mosquito. All these give rise to different types of infections like elephantiasis, malaria fever, which is on the increase all over the nation, filariasis. All this, again, is something that is tethered to effect of climate change. And again, what of the discomfort in the environment? When the environment is supposed to be conducive for living, if the environment is tense, the temperature is very, very hot, people don't find it comfortable to live, and it is affecting human beings. Of course, there are some other health challenges like, cancers of the skin as a result of excessive temperature, sunshine. So all these are the negative impacts that this climate change continue to exert on the environment.
Negative and economic impact as well. I get that. So when you highlight these issues and then when we talk about the need for action on redressing and restoring the ecosystem, can you bring us up to speed on perhaps the kind of investment we should be seen in the environment sector and what can states and non-state actors, how can states and non-state actors target specific areas for intervention?
Okay, thank you very much. You see, according to Robert Schuller, he told us about the principles of problem management, and he used the acronym IPDE, I standing for identification of the problem, predicting the problem, taking decision and executing. You see, before we can ever solve a problem, we must know what the problem is all about. Now, I want to say very categorically that we need to solve problem from the root. You know, there is this African Ministerial Conference that was held in Dubai in 2008. There it was unanimously adopted that a minimum of 0.5% of total budgetary allocation of government should be devoted to sanitation. And that means that budgetary allocation of government must be enough to take care of environmental health services in the nation. Look at Nigeria, for example, now. There are so many things that we need to come up with. Government need to come up with. Individuals need to come up with. The establishment of waste recycling plan. You know, this has to be strategically located in different states of the federation. And if that is in place, this waste that is looking at us, nagging at us on daily basis, won't see waste. If the environment is eventually made clean, there will be no problem of health challenges. So
we're having some issues with our connection from Ida. But Doc, I would just like for you to, in less than 30 seconds, just give us your final thoughts on the program.
Okay, thank you very much. What we are saying is that government should be should take environmental health services very, very seriously. And again, environmental health officers should also wake up to really have impact on our modern day environmental health services in the nation. I want to say very categorically that government should ensure that adequate number of environmental health officers are employed to be in commensurate agreement with what World Health Organization specified. One environmental health officer to 8,000 population, so that we should have them in good number that will be able to sensitize the members of the public, because ignorance is the major factor. Once people are properly sensitized, they will come up with a definite behavioral change that will really help the state of environment.
Very true. Very true. Environment advocates and Provokes College of Health Sciences and Technology, Ida, Kogi State, Dr. Nuhu Solomon Ayegun. I want to thank you so much for coming on Insights. It's been a pleasure and a delight speaking with you on the 2021 World Environment Day. Up next is Elizabeth Omorui with the Media Review segment.
There have been a lot of problems and misconceptions surrounding menstruation in developing countries, particularly in Nigeria. Menstrual hygiene management amongst women and adolescent girls has become a matter of concern in recent age, especially in rural areas where access to modern facilities are hindered by a number of factors and myths surrounding this subject. The global demand of the understanding of the challenges menstruating schoolgirls face and associated potential risks are growing. How do we help eliminate the challenges? Elizabeth Jayo, Wash Menstrual Health Hygiene Master Trainer, who joins us via telephone, will speak on the issue. Mrs. Jayo, thank you so much for joining us on Insights.
Thank you very much.
All right, I would like to go straight to the point. How far have we fared in this regard?
I can say we're not doing so badly, but then I will also say there is so much that still needs to be done.
Okay.
And why do I say this? 2 years ago, precisely in 2019, the federal government, at the instance of Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development, convened a Master Trainers program for menstrual health and hygiene management in Benue State, where they pulled together almost 80 practitioners in the wash sector and also those that were already focusing on issues of menstrual health and hygiene. And we trained on how to retrain on issues surrounding MHHM. And so on that note, several TOC trainers were trained. They've been escalating implementation of good hygiene management practices regarding MHM. And also there are several development partners that are supporting the process. Then we had WHO in partnership with UNICEF, in partnership with United Purpose, and in partnership with several other implementing, national NGOs. In 2018, there was a resolution that was taken at the. It's helping to provide. To address the issue of lack of pads, especially during menstruation.
CSOs, what are CSOs doing to prime this management?
Currently, the CSOs are working with the state government, the state actors to ensure, and also at the federal to ensure that issues around knowledge level, awareness, and sensitization of the need to ensure access to, menstrual health and hygiene materials for women and for girls, is in place. The Ministry of Women Affairs, Federal Ministry of Women Affairs, has done its best institutionalizing. The roadmap is on. They've done mapping, and survey, have identified partners, have analyzed what exact the issues are. They are moving to the next level of drawing a roadmap for the country to ensure that these issues, the issue of MHHM is given the adequate attention it deserves. But as we know, funding and also technical knowledge is of essence.
Elizabeth Joel, WASH Menstruation Hygiene Health Master Trainer, thank you so much for your contribution on Insight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's it on this episode of the program. Do join us same time next week for more on Insight. My name is Nnamdi Adipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. Keep watching Insight. We'll see you next week.
NTA Parliament is a dedicated 24-hour channel that broadcasts the activities of the Nigerian Senate, Federal House of Representatives, and all the 36 state houses of assembly. NTA Parliament, strengthening Nigeria's democracy.
I never get this kind of thing, or I hear it.
Nínú ẹgbẹ́ la wà tá a ti gbọ́ formation tíjọba tó ń ṣèrànlọ́wọ́ fáwa télọ̀ wọ́n nítorí COVID-19.
Wọ́n ní kí n korúkọ àtàkáǹtì tí mò ń lò so mo kọ sílẹ̀ mo mọ́kàn kúrò mo rò pé ó lè jẹ́rọ́ ni nǹkan tá a wá ṣe.
Ju bí ọ̀sẹ̀ bíi mẹ́ta ẹ̀ lọ tí wọ́n gba àkáǹtì nọ́mbà wa tí wọ́n béèrè ọ̀rọ̀ lọ́wọ́ wa yẹn ni wọ́n send owó sínú àkáǹtì mi.
Ọjọ́ yẹn náà ni mo fi owó kún tí mo dẹ̀ lọ ra fóònù so láti ìgbà yẹn mi ò ní ìṣòro pẹ̀lú àwọn kọ́sítọ́mà mi mọ́.
Òṣèré tó máa gba 30,000 ẹ̀ tí wọ́n fẹ́ materials pátápátá tó yẹ máa ṣiṣẹ́ family àjẹun ìyàwó àtọmọ máa jẹun wọ́n appreciate.
Mo dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ federal government fún nǹkan tó ń ṣe.
Information is power. Everyone wants power. So feel powerful with the NTA News mobile app, the one-stop information center. Real news at your fingertip. Be the first to report by uploading first-hand information on the You Report link. And be the first to know by simply clicking on any of the links on the sidebar for headlines, domestic and foreign news, economy, security, politics, sports, and more. Stream live on your smartphone and tablets and stay connected. It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and
In recent weeks, the offices of the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) have come under attack in the country, especially in the southeastern region. Vehicles and other operational facilities of INEC have not also been spared. On Tuesday, May 18, INEC offices in Ebonyi and Ezza North local government areas were attacked and property destroyed. In Enugu State, 2 attacks on INEC's offices resulted in the burning of some parts of the office and burning of operational vehicles of the Commission. Earlier, reports of burning of INEC offices have been from Imo, Akwa Ibom, and Abia states. It is unclear who is responsible for these attacks on INEC's offices and national assets. The motives for these attacks are not clear. However, should the trend continue, it could spread throughout the country with dire consequences on the conduct of Nigeria's next general elections scheduled to hold in February 2023. In all of this,